We've done most of the major locations in Fallout 4. Now it's time to tackle some of the minor ones. Some of the locations that aren't involved in any quests, or some of the locations that are involved in minor quests, or in Radiant quests. These locations are a lot smaller and typically don't have a lot of lore, which means the videos are going to be pretty short compared to what I typically make. So I'm going to have 2 videos for you today. One of these locations is Monsignor Plaza, near the ruins of Cambridge. Before the war, this was a marketplace where people came to purchase all sorts of wonderful goods. But now it is a raider warren. We are sent here by many of the different factions in Fallout 4 to complete Radiant quests. For the Institute, we get sent here on the quest called Reclamation. After the end of the game, raiders begin to kidnap our synths who go out into the Commonwealth, and we need to get them back. Passing through an alley on our way to Monsignor Plaza, we find an expert locked door. This is one of the 3 entrances to this plaza. We see the front guarded by 1 legendary raider. This is where we find the second door, and thankfully this one isn't locked. Just out front, there's a little bit of a lake. This connects directly to the ocean. And then heading around to the side of the building, we find the primary raider encampment. We find some raiders just outside, and they've built a tiny little shack for themselves near to the 3rd entrance. After clearing the entrance, we can enter the plaza. Now, the plaza itself is made up of many different floors, each of which is patrolled by lots of raiders, which means that if we don't use stealth, we're likely going to be fired upon by most of them as soon as we enter. After doing the rounds and clearing the raiders, we can explore the plaza. This entrance brings us to the 2nd floor of the plaza, and all the shops are completely ruined. Going into one of them, we can go down a broken floor into the bathroom of a shop on the lower floor. This leads directly to the primary clothing store, which must have been one of the larger attractions for this plaza. We find quite an assortment of clothing items here: bathrobes, baseball uniforms, hats, and it's here where we find the captured synth.
The Institute sent me. Take this transmitter, and they'll send a courser to pick you up.
I look forward to returning to my duties.
After rescuing him, he just sits here until we leave. The display counter to the right has lots of sunglasses. We find a Stars and Stripes bandana back here. And through a broken wall, this store leads to a books and stationery shop. Here we can loot the cash registers and we find some pre-war money, and that's about it. Heading out here, we can go into the appliance store. We can open up a few refrigerators, one of which was booby-trapped.
What the hell was that?
It was connected to a rigged shotgun on top of one of the nearby fridges. And in one of them, we find 2 severed heads and a vial of Radex. Behind the counter, we find a novice-locked floor safe right behind the cash register. And then just outside, we see a Protectron charging station. This has a police Protectron inside. We can release the Protectron using the terminal, and if we have robotics expert, we can hack this guy and turn him into a companion. This green door is the door that leads right outside. It was the one at the entrance where we found that legendary raider. On the far end of this floor, turning the corner, we see an Etotronic with a hand inside. We see some right hand bones. They must belong to this dismembered skeleton in the rubble below. On a bench near here is a skeleton wearing some sunglasses holding a Jangles the Moon Monkey. Someone knocked over his bowler hat. We can walk away with a lot of different clothing items. I always use these to dress up my settlers. There are 2 elevators here, but only one works. Taking the working elevator, we can head on up to the 3rd floor. This is the floor from which one of the raiders attacked us when we first entered. We can go through the broken elevator shaft to open the hatch to the broken elevator, but neither of the doors work. So instead, we head up some stairs to the mezzanine. This is where we find the appliance shop. There's a big splattering of some horrible liquid on the wall, lots of containers to loot, and then a wrecked Mr. Handy in the corner. Heading outside, we see an armor repair station and a door. This brings us out to the rooftop of the building, which is guarded by 1 raider.
You'll regret this.
The raiders have built sandbag barricades up here, and they have their raider tarps. But aside from that, there's not much here. So we need to head back inside to finish exploring the plaza. There's a raider cage with a dead Mirelurk spawn inside. Wonder what the raiders were doing capturing one of them. And then right next to the steps where we came up, we find the elevator. This brings us to the 4th floor. This floor is pretty empty, aside from a staircase leading up to the 5th floor. We see an arrow painted on the wall pointing us upward. And at the top is a machine gun turret. Off in the distance, we see a raider.
Threat eliminated.
and that clears the plaza. The door to the right leads to the gun shop. We see a Revolutionary War mannequin guarding the entrance, and on the right, we see a unique-looking terminal called Griswold's Terminal. The first entry is called Systems Wired Up. Finally got all the terminals wired up. Took a while to get the turrets playing nice, especially. I have to remember to get something nice for Jerry after what happened to his pet mole rat. Oh, did the turrets kill his mole rat? We don't find a mole rat corpse here. I wish Sue didn't have to be such a pain about this taking a while. Just because she can load up a few holotapes doesn't mean she knows the first thing about how complicated this old crap is. Whatever. It works now. Petty rivalries in the Raider world. Also in this terminal is the Griswold's Poetry Collection holotape. We can eject it or play it right from this terminal. Property of Griswold. Do not read. This means you. We've got a budding poet in our midst, and he's got poems on a wide range of topics. However, the first one, On Life, is blank. There's nothing here. I don't know if this is a bug, or if this means that a raider doesn't really have anything poetic to say about something as sacred as life. But he does have thoughts on death. On death. Lo to die, to kill, to maim. I really like to watch men die. I hope nobody kills me, so I can kill them instead. The end. And here I was expecting something eloquent. Silly me. The next one, on Sue. Sue is pretty. Sue is nice. Sue can shoot real good, even at night. I love Sue. The end. Well, let's hope Sue returns the affection. The next one on Griswold. Lo to be tough and handsome. Lo to be the best shooter ever. Lo to be Griswold. Best raider ever. The end. I wonder what writing this poetry satisfied in this man. And the final one is on Sue New. Sue is mean and not nice. That is why I shot her twice. The end. Well, Griswold has advanced to rhyming now. Kind of. But does this mean that he killed Sue? And I wonder why. Maybe she rejected his romantic advances. In the weapons shop, we find a selection of ammunition in a nearby case. Single rounds just kind of sitting out, which is strange. And then one missile on a shelf. Behind the counter, we find a bathroom scale. What's this connected to? Oh, I see it. Disarming it, we can then go around the corner and disarm the grenade bouquet. We find 44 rounds on the nearby shelf and a 10mm reflex sight mod. There's some 10mm rounds behind the counter, and that's it for the gun shop. Heading down the hallway, we can loot the Raider's corpse and peer out the windows. They positioned this correctly. It's got a great view of the water just outside. And in the next room, we find a Slocum's Joe. We can loot the cash register of this tiny little restaurant, and on the table, we find the key to Monsignor Plaza. This will allow us to open the expert locked door that we passed by earlier. Heading out, we see a big crate of booze on the table, one of which is a whiskey. And at the end, we find the End of Dungeon steamer trunk with randomized loot inside. Next to a chemistry station is another one of these fancy-looking terminals. This is Sue's terminal. Oh dear. Sue's terminal. Touch this and die slowly. Especially you, Griswold. Note to self. Next time I see Griswold, shoot him 3 times. So maybe Sue survived being shot by Griswold. He shot her twice. She wants to shoot him 3 times. So I guess maybe that means that this raider whom we killed may have been Sue. But who's Griswold? Perhaps he was one of the raiders we killed earlier. Maybe the legendary one outside. Heading through the door. Ow! I didn't even see this. Gosh, I'm so bad at this. We can head down the stairs, disarming the tin can chimes, until we reach the very bottom, where we find some toxic barrels beneath the stairs. This brings us back outside to the alleyway. Griswold and Sue's terminals also appear in an unused cell in the game. The cell exists in every version of the game, but only PC players can access it. If you're on the PC, you can open up the console and type COC space Z unused subway terminal showcase to teleport to the unused cell. This cell has a lot of other stuff that was cut from the game, including a Robco defragmenter and a piece of software called turretoverride.exe. I explored this unused cell in a video that I made on all of the cut locations from Fallout 4, which you can watch here. I think that we find Griswold and Sue's terminal in that unused cell because it was probably the original intended location for the terminals. I'm thinking that Griswold and Sue were part of a larger, more in-depth raider encounter that you would find in a subway, where we would also find a dead mole rat, for example, and possibly encounter Griswold and Sue. My bet is after that cell was cut from the game, they still wanted to use these terminals because, well, the poems were just so cute, and so instead, they likely placed them in Monsignor Plaza. That's just my best guess. This plaza is likely based on a real-world location called the Cambridge Side Galleria. Like the plaza, the real-world Galleria is built right next to a circular waterway that leads out to the harbor. The Galleria has many different shops like the plaza, but it's much larger than what we find in Fallout 4. And it's located in relatively the same spot. And that is the full story of the Monsignor Plaza. Stay tuned, everyone. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I've got another video scheduled for today to give you more Oxhorn content on this fine Saturday. Thanks so much for watching. I publish a new Fallout video 6 days a week, so if you want to make sure that you don't miss what I publish next, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. And if you like what I do, and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in just a few more hours with a brand new video.